So hi, my name is Martin. I'm autistic, so I can't keep things straight in my mind, which I'm doing this from paper. There was a time in my life when I was about 18, when I smoked a lot. And I discovered that I smoked to deal with the stress of my everyday life. And so I decided not to quit smoking, but to quit with the things that were causing me stress. And I found that within a week, I had also quit smoking. Ever since then, I've lived my life to the rule of causality. What is the cause of something, and how do I stop it? And in consequence of that decision, in my notebook, at that time I wrote the following questions. Who are you? And what do you want to do with the rest of your life? Now, a bit more than 25 years later, I still find I ask myself those questions every day. Who am I today? Or what do I want to do today? To me, the answer to those two questions are the only things I really need to live my life. Everything else is just stuff. Some stuff will help me to go where I want to go. And some stuff is just in the way, so I ignore it. To me, happiness is a fleeting thing. It comes and it goes, often without warning. Being happy is not something I really strive to be, though commercialism loves to tell us otherwise. It's just something that happens when I walk my path of life. Things that make me happy, I keep with me until they don't. And things that don't make me happy, well, why should I bother to carry those around at all? Living like this, I found that living to work to live, just doesn't make sense. And so I chose a different path, to follow my dreams instead. One of those dreams was to meet Neil Gaiman, who at the time and still I found the most simply amazing person, as well as the most inventive and wonderful writer. And I wanted to be just like that. And so when I found that he was in the Netherlands, I set out to meet him. I didn't have a ticket to where he was, so I snuck in through a side door, and I sat in on a lecture he presented. And when he was finished, I waited for him at the exit. And I said, Mr. Gaiman, I'd like to buy you a coffee. I have this question, and only you can answer it. And he just looked at me for a moment. And he could have easily called security to have my ass thrown out. But instead, he said, sure. So we sat down in a coffee corner. I bought him the coffee. And he said, so what's the question? And I asked him, how do I get to where you're at? And he said, well, you are. We're both right here. And I said, no, I mean, I want to be a writer like you. How do I make that happen? And he said, don't. One of me is plenty. But you can be a writer like you, which is way more fun. So, how do I become a writer? And he said, write. And write often. Write when you're happy, and write when you're sad. And when a story is done, publish it. You will learn more from a single failed publication than you will ever do from 10 successful ones. And so I asked, how do I do that? How do I publish? And he told me, imagine your goal is a mountain way in the distance. And then with every step you take, you first look if that step is going to take you to that mountain or away from it. But how do I know what to do? Which step is the right one? Just picture yourself as someone who knows how to do it, and then just act like they would. And so I asked him one small question. Can I picture myself being you doing that? And he smiled at me for a moment. And he said, sure. It was my lifelong dream to write books. And so I did. And sure, making the choices to get there wasn't always easy. Not having a job to rely on meant that I had to scrounge to pay for rent sometimes. But I was fine with that. And there was a time I lived on rice, bread, and water for months. And I was fine with that. All the while, I kept my eye on that mountain of publishing my first book. And when I was 30 and I was finished, I dedicated it to him. And I sent a copy to Mr. Gaiman's publisher. And as an answer, I got a handwritten note from Mr. Gaiman himself, which simply read, now what are you going to do? During the time it took me to write, I found that I had stopped reading newspapers, stopped watching TV, stopped using Facebook and YouTube, simply because there were distractions that filled time and kept my mind busy from what really mattered to me. I had turned away from that hamster wheel of commercialism, of running and running in circles and getting nowhere, and instead to look for my world for answers, to look inside myself to find how I could reach that mountain, my goal. And with each mountain I reached, I asked myself, so now what are you going to do? And after a while, another mountain appeared. And I took new steps. I think the biggest fear people have is to look inside themselves, as they are afraid that there's nothing there. And so they fill their world with all kinds of things to gather stuff. A bigger car, a better house. But that's not what matters. The only thing that really matters are the things you put here, the things you love. And I don't believe there has been a man or woman who on their deathbed wished they had worked more and dreamed less. So if you're not happy with your life, then I urge you to stop and just ask yourself, why do I do this? Do I need this? What is my mountain? And how do I get there? If you live by causality and face your problems instead of just dealing with consequences, the only worry you will eventually have is not to be bored. And there's a simple cure for boredom, which is to do things that until now you've only dreamed about. So that's it. Thank you, Mr. Gaiman, for everything. And thank you.